Today's the start of the Jeep Gladiator transformation here, starting with a Metalcloak lift. Of course, this beautiful rig belongs to Ken. And man, I'll tell you, it really does look nice. We're gonna make it nicer. The Metalcloak control arms, and quite honestly, pretty impressive. The weight alone, very, very beefy. So it looks like Ken's ordered a variety of brake line extensions. He's got some Metalcloak brake line extensions. He's got some Evo JT 26-inch line extensions. Of course, the front control arm, the other control arms are right here. We'll go through all of this. Looks like we got a drive shaft. It's got something from Borla. Could be some type of spacer, or maybe it's a loop delete. All right, we're not messing around here. We started doing an inventory on all the parts, springs, bump stop kit, control arms, Adams rear drive shaft. Looks like a Metalcloak front drive shaft. I believe that's Tom Woods. So we kind of just looked over the material, and we already have the Gladiator up on the lift, tires removed, and we're basically looking her over and coming up with our plan of attack. All right, so we've been cooking along on the front end. As you can see, the drag link, the end links are already removed. We've already drooped this front axle. Really, in the matter of minutes, it's gone pretty well once we got everything into location. So we're making some pretty good headway. The electrical's been disconnected over on this side so that we could droop this down. You can see Mike already has the front drive shaft disconnected. So just wanted to get a little update video on the progress of the front end. Okay, so we've disconnected the wiring for the front axle disconnect. The brake line stuff is all loose. All the brake lines are going to be replaced. We had a damaged jounce that was just basically annihilated. These are pretty stout though, and they're tough to get out, so we're going to try drilling it out. And then if we can't drill it out, then we'll just have to torch it. But we removed the stock coils. Mopar had a little puck in here. That's been removed. And we're going to be looking at changing out the control arms, getting the Metalcloak fixed measurements and setting up the control arms. And they'll be going in one at a time. And of course, the front drive shaft that you see right there we're going to be completely removing that and changing that out. So that's where we are. A little look, a lot of the old Mopar parts that are coming out from the Mopar lift. And nice little tip if you're ever struggling to get this jounce out. We took 1.25 inch regular wood spade bit and a battery drill. You just drill the center right out, and then it just falls right out beautifully. Look at the progress. Front axle dropped down. Knuckle end of the drag link is disconnected. Track bar removed. Drive shaft. The spacer that came with the Mopar lift has a stud that goes through it and a nut that goes up underneath. Remove that. These jounces have been removed. Ken is either going to get some longer jounces. If not, he'll get factory back in. And then we have a puck arrangement that Metalcloak sells for the bump stop. Installed the ratchet strap just to kind of give us a little extra security. We do have the large jack stands underneath the axle, but just for a little extra security as we measure up and set the length given to us by Metalcloak on the control arms as adjustable control arms, and then we'll take these stock control arms out one at a time and replace them. Here's a good look at the Metalcloak shock relocation bracket right here. So normally the shock is in here. This bracketry, this is the passenger side, goes on. It gives you a spacer, a nut and a bolt there. You drill this out right here and you get a nut and a bolt, 3/8 for the bottom of the perch. And then the shock ends up, the upper uses the stock setup right here. The inside of this shock has a spacer about that long. And this is like a long 6-inch bolt that goes through, and the shock ends up being canted on an angle. You can see the bottom of the shock is outboard, and then it goes in up towards the top of the shock mount. And these are the Metalcloak Rock Sport.
JT, Game Changer Suspension Systems.
Okay, here's a look at the driver's side. You've got the lower shock mount. It basically brings the shock outboard. It's up on an angle. You can just see I've got the bolt started at the top, down at the bottom. That stuff will get torqued. Pretty good fit. Pretty nice. All right, so we are anticipating, it was obviously bought through Metalcloak for this lift.
Yoke for the transfer case. Check.
Check.
All right, this thing looks nice. Got some weight to it.
Wow. Gasket, rubber O-ring, bolts. So, $1 million question. What brand is that? It's black, which makes me think that it's not a Tom Woods, unless they're selling it.
It doesn't have an identifiable sticker on it. It's a CV head.
Yeah, so that double cardan, do you think that's a 1310 or a 1350? What do you
That's a 1310 for sure.
1310.
1310.
Okay.
1310 down here.
All right, there we go.
Looks like it'll bolt right to
the flange.
Front axle.
Yeah.
And
then that's right there for the transfer case.
Transfer case. We're gonna have to change that yoke.
Yeah, beautiful.
Not a crush sleeve in there, so we can just zing that off, put the other one on, and
so we started putting control arms in, and we took the bolts out. You can see, maybe you can see in there on the front drive shaft coming out of the transfer case, so we have to get that out.
Take a little screwdriver.
But the bottom line is the belly armor is significantly in the way. So we're looking at removing the engine portion of the armor and this one center piece here to gain access to the transfer case because the flanges need to be changed. The 9/16. Just taking a look at the engine armor, and one of the problems that he had here coming off this catalytic converter on his passenger side, the crossover pipe is just completely dented and caved in. So this has been a point of contact right here. And just like my Jeep, he's got so much freaking mud and wood. Surprised he hasn't had a fire under here. So we're removing, unfortunately, we have to remove some of this belly armor. It's been a little bit of a battle. Go ahead.
I'm gonna stick it up in here so we can see what we're looking at. We're a little weak on it here. Boy,
okay.
Look at that. It's not even.
Yeah, loosey-goosey on the
bolts aren't even
on
tight.
the motor mount.
Not even tight.
Yeah, so we found a lot of loose stuff here, Ken. Your bracketry that comes down for
this one's okay.
For your motor belly armor. We just removed the first piece. Your crossover pipes was annihilated. You can see the dent in it right where Mike is.
He's actually worn the metal shiny. It's been rubbing on that skid plate.
And you can see now the whole idea is we're trying to access and get in here to the transfer case because we got to change the output shaft, the output flange on the transfer case for the new jack shaft. So we're doing some battle with the belly armor right now.
Is it? Yeah, it's pretty. I could feel them. Actually, I can feel the top of it.
Really?
Yeah, but it's not a nut.
This is welded.
Yeah. It's welded or it's threaded right into that cross piece.
We don't have any choice for this one. This one's just, I hammered it pretty good and it's still loose.
I want to get a shot in at the stock flange coming out of the transfer case on the front drive shaft. So all those bolts are out, but again, the belly armor is a problem, so we're slowly working on removing that. We got to completely remove this drive shaft.
Leave that in there.
Ken also has a loop delete. You can see the loop right here. He's got a Borla loop delete kit to remove this, tie it in right up there, just below the catalytic converter.
What's the time on the clock? 1.
Okay, due with some of the problems we've had with rusty bolts and whatnot with this belly armor system, now we got to give it some heat. We're doing everything we can to get these bolts to come apart. They're in some cases just severely corroded, rusted in, or even stripped out. Okay, we're in the process of, we cleaned this up for a good ground right here, and we got to weld a nut onto this because a lot of these bolts we just cannot get out. You can see the welded bolt right to the stripped out bolt, so hopefully this trick works.
17 wrench? Wrench, pal? What? Wrench. Unfortunately, we're here. I'm going upside down with this too.
Yeah, you're working in a tough spot. You got some kind of movement there. It's all right, brother. Looking at the output of the transfer case, look at this tiny little 1-inch dinky shaft. And then here's the split, and there's like a little carrier bearing of some sort. And then we get the traditional sized, what you'd expect to see on a JK or a JL. Crazy. Okay, so Colin is holding the new coil in his hand. You can see the difference. These are front coils. This is, I think he had a 2-inch, maybe I'm wrong. I'm thinking a 2-inch Mopar.
I think he said 2-inch. Yeah.
2, so 2-inch Mopar coil front versus the Metalcloak 3.5-inch coil. Pretty impressive.
Rick, I got movement.
Just look at this. Mike is just taking his hands. This is the rear drive shaft at the support bearing and
Center support, carrier bearing, whatever you want to call it.
He's moving that thing 1/2 inch easily, so it's all coming out.
If you look at the side too, you can see because of the increase in lift that thing's already at an angle going through there.
It's articulated, it's maxed out. Okay, due to the fact that the bolts are so badly corroded in and we're breaking tools trying to get them out, we've tried heat, we've welded nuts to them. We're now going to the hypertherm plasma cutter to cut out the heads of these bolts, and then we'll redesign how we're going to re-secure it. But the belly armor must come off, so that's where we're at. Yeah, basically 4 beveled hardened steel bolts are basically being plasma cut out. The heads are being cut out so we can get this piece of armor, this middle section of armor to drop down off the vehicle. All right, so you can see what we're up against here. There's so much force. This is all like fitting together nice and tight. But in order, these bolts that held it in need to plasma cut the heads off. So now we're trying to free it up so we can then move where my finger is. I'm pointing this way. This whole middle assembly needs to come forward to be removed from the underside of the Jeep. And then we can get back to getting busy on changing out our old components and upgrading. I'm gonna put something up here to take the weight off. massive work in loosening up this belly armor. We, some of the lower pieces of armor, we had to just get the bolts part way out. We're trying to separate these two pieces right here. It's like a tongue fit, you know, it's like tongue and groove almost. Or more like it's like a piece of shiplap. There's an overlap to it, and then it was all bolted together. What we found is there's no bolts holding the skid plate / gas tank holder, the stock one. So as we're taking this armor off, the gas tank is coming down. So we're going to clamp that up in place, and that's going to have to be addressed as well.